My name is Emily Carter. I'm 23 years old. I had just graduated from university, but since I couldn't find a job in my field, I started working as a barista at a cafe to cover my living expenses. Days kept repeating themselves endlessly, and I found myself begging the universe for some kind of change. There was a missing piece inside my soul, as if my spirit were a puzzle with one vital part gone. I was fighting to find it. I didn't yet know what would complete me, and the question spun around in my head like a storm with no answer. That day, the sky over Boston was wrapped in its usual shade of gray. Low and heavy clouds hung like a curtain over the city, watching every street. I was behind the counter, lining up cups, trying to warm my hands on the ceramic. Yet inside, I was so cold that even boiling water couldn't have melted the frost in my chest. Since it was a weekday, the cafe was nearly empty. That meant less work and far too much time to think. I couldn't find the meaning of life. Maybe I wasn't where I was meant to be, maybe I had never truly fallen in love. But even if I had, would that have made me happy? Perhaps instead of chasing happiness, surrendering to the flow was the wisest thing one could do. I had graduated in business administration. My biggest dream was to open my own place one day, but I had neither the capital nor a family who could support me. I grew up in a modest home, with no trace of luxury. My parents had married for love, and brought me into the world a year later. But that love had slowly turned into chaos. Financial struggles opened a canyon between them. My mother was never satisfied. My father, no matter how hard he tried, could never give her enough. Their arguments became a constant loop, an unending circle of exhaustion. Now that I had finished school, all eyes were on me. My mother kept pressuring me to marry a rich man and was willing to try every possible way to make it happen. She would always lecture me about the uselessness of love, using her own life as a warning. Money brings peace, not passion. Because of her, I had always been afraid of love, but throwing myself at a wealthy man felt degrading to me. I wanted to earn my own money, to never need anyone, but perhaps that wish would forever remain just a wish. As a barista, getting rich was not exactly on the horizon. I had tried so hard to find a better job, but no one wanted to pay a decent salary to a fresh graduate. Another gray day passed in the cafe as I drifted through my thoughts. By closing time, I locked the doors and headed home. At dinner, my parents had already gone to bed. I ate the plate left out for me, grateful that I didn't have to hear another "when are you getting married?" talk. After eating, I went straight to bed, drifting into sleep with the dream of someday opening my own cafe. My own place in the world. 6 a.m. Boston's streets were still asleep, but my day had already begun. As I opened the cafe door, I caught the familiar smell of coffee that clung to me everywhere. Sometimes, people carry the scent of their lives with them, don't they? Mine smelled of burnt espresso, milk foam, and a hint of disappointment. "Emily, you're 5 minutes late." I rolled my eyes the moment I heard the voice. It was Martha, the owner, a woman in her late 40s. Sweet but sharp, she loved coffee far more than she loved people. 3 minutes, I corrected her, showing my watch. The subway broke down again. Martha grumbled, but smiled. Excuses, excuses. Come on, it's going to be a busy day. Saturday, the busiest day of the week. While others dreaded it, I almost welcomed the rush. The more I worked, the less I had to think about how merciless life could be. Working had become my way of escaping reality, though deep down, I knew one day, that reality would catch up to me. The coffee machine hissed as I began the morning shift. Same faces, same orders. Every day. The only color in Boston's gray mornings came from people's routines. The old man by the window always ordered an Americano, read his newspaper, and left at exactly 7:30. The young student couple shared notes and sleepy smiles, and me, in the middle of it all, feeling like I was wandering through someone else's dream instead of living my own life. Sometimes, when the steam from the espresso machine brushed my face, I would daydream. One day I'll have my own place, a little book cafe, with warm lights, quiet music, and peace instead of pressure. But then someone would shout, "One more latte," and just like that, my dream would disappear into the steam. Around noon, the cafe door opened, and Haley walked in. She was my best friend. We met at university. Blonde, energetic, always late, yet her presence could light up any room. "Still in boss mode, huh?" she teased. "Again," I said. "Third time this week I've had to play manager." "Mark my words," she said, taking a sip of her soy latte. "One day this place will be yours. Or you'll be somewhere entirely different, doing something amazing." "I'd love that," I sighed. "But bills don't really care about dreams." Haley grew serious, setting her cup down. Double quotes. Emily, you work so hard, but have you ever stopped to actually live? Her words pierced something inside me. Haley's sentences always carried too much truth, and I had mastered the art of running from truth. By evening, the cafe had emptied out. I wiped the tables, turned down the music. Martha had gone home. It was just me, and the quiet that follows closing time. Outside, it had begun to rain, one of those Boston rains, neither violent nor gentle. I put on my coat, slipped in my earbuds, and started walking toward the metro. City lights shimmered against wet streets, reflecting like liquid fire. Boston had already swallowed the night. Rain fell like a thin, stubborn curtain from the sky, each drop landing on the pavement. Sounded like the city's heartbeat. My footsteps echoed within that rhythm. Behind me, the cafe lights went out. Ahead of me stretched a long, wet loneliness. That's when I heard a growl. I froze. From the corner of the street, two glowing eyes appeared, a dog large, wet, and angry. It must have broken free from its chain. I quickened my steps. So did it. My heart climbed to my throat. My breath turned uneven. I swung my bag, shouting, "Get away!" But the dog bared its teeth, coming closer. All I could hear was my heartbeat, pounding louder than the rain. Then a voice behind me. Deep, steady, commanding. "Don't move." A shadow rushed past me. A man, drenched in rain, stepped between me and the dog, arms spread. He said something to it. I couldn't make out what. The dog growled once more, then slowly backed away and vanished into the rain. I stood there frozen. The man turned toward me. Rain streamed down his face, yet his eyes were calm. "Are you okay?" he asked. I couldn't speak. My hands were trembling. I only managed a small nod. He stepped closer, picked up my fallen bag, and handed it to me. "I think you dropped this," he said, his voice low, gentle, but carrying a kind of quiet weight, the kind that belongs to someone who has lived through a lot. "Thank you," I finally whispered. He nodded. "If you walk in the rain, be careful," he said. "Boston nights can be too quiet sometimes." Then, as if nothing had happened, he turned and walked away. I watched him disappear into the gray rain, a fading silhouette swallowed by the city. When I looked down at my bag, a strange warmth spread through me. Not fear, something else, something familiar, like being protected for the first time in years. When I got home, my shoes were soaked, my hair clinging to my shoulders, droplets falling from my coat onto the floor, but I barely felt any of it. It was as if part of me was still out there, standing under that rain, frozen in that moment. My father was watching a game on TV. My mother was in the kitchen, preparing food. She must have noticed the look on my face because she came over, frowning. "Emily, look at you. Are you okay? Was it raining that much?" "Sweetheart, I'm fine," I said quickly. "Just, a dog scared me a little, that's all." My father called out from the living room. "They never catch those stray beasts. Be careful next time." "Okay, Dad," I muttered, escaping into my room before they could ask more questions. I ignored my mother's call for dinner, pulled the blanket over my head, and lay still. The growl of the dog, the sudden fear, and then, that voice. "Don't move." It echoed in my ears, deep and firm. Not a voice that commanded, one that protected. For a moment, time had stopped, and in that stillness, I had remembered what it felt like to trust someone. My hands were still trembling. I gripped the edge of the bed and whispered to myself, "It's over. You're safe now?" But deep inside, something told me this was only the beginning. My heart was still racing, not out of fear but from something softer, a strange calm, a fragile warmth. It had been so long since anyone had saved me from anything, and now, in the silence after that chaos, I felt both strong and fragile all at once. When I closed my eyes, I relived it all again, the rain, the dark, the voice. It was so vivid that it felt as if it were happening again. That single word, "Don't move," had become a shelter. Just then, the door creaked open. My mother's voice entered softly, cautious but kind. "Emily, sweetheart, haven't you eaten yet?" I didn't answer. I just lifted my head slightly. She came in, holding a plate roasted chicken with vegetables, still warm. That was so like her. First she scolds, then she softens. "Look," she said, setting the plate on the table, "no matter how hard you work, if you don't take care of yourself, no one else will. Come, eat." She sat down across from me, studying my face. Her tone changed. "What's wrong? You seem distracted. Did you meet someone? Did you meet someone?" The words struck something deep inside me, but I said nothing. I just looked down and took a sip of my tea. She waited for a moment, then sighed. When I was young, I believed in love, she said quietly. I loved your father. I thought love could fix everything. But love doesn't pay the bills, Emily. I looked up at her. There was a heaviness in her eyes, the weariness of a woman who had once loved deeply and had been drained by it. I know, Mom, I whispered. But she didn't seem to hear me. Or maybe she didn't want to. I just want you to have a good life, she continued. A secure life. Love fades, but comfort stays. A rich man won't break your heart or leave you hungry. My eyes filled, but my voice wouldn't come. She didn't know that just an hour ago, a stranger had risked himself for me, not for money, not for gain, just out of instinct. And in that single moment, I had felt something she hadn't given me in years: safety. When she left the room, I looked at the plate again. The food was cold now, but inside, I still felt that same warmth, the warmth of that stranger's voice. Don't move. I closed my eyes and whispered, maybe love doesn't feed the body, but what feeds the soul? Then, Sunday morning. Boston was quiet. The rain had stopped, but the sky still carried that heavy gray fatigue. Wrapped in my blanket, I sat by the window, watching a few people pass by, the faint sound of a bicycle bell somewhere far away. Time itself seemed to move in slow motion. The same thought had been looping in my head all night. That voice, those eyes, that moment, the shadow of that stranger still lingered in me. Then the doorbell rang. Who is it? I called. Who else? Haley, of course. The sound of her voice made me smile instantly. Haley's voice could brighten any room. I opened the door to see her holding a bag full of croissants and coffee. You haven't had breakfast yet, have you? She said, slipping off her shoes. Maybe, I said, grinning. She stepped inside, scanning my face. What's with you? You look like you've worked 3 shifts back to back. I hesitated. I didn't know how to explain it. Something happened, I finally said softly. Her eyes widened. What do you mean something? Good or bad? Both? I said, and then, slowly, I told her everything. The rain, the growling dog, the shadow in the streetlight, that commanding voice, the fear, and the strange sense of calm that followed. Haley listened with her mouth half open. So you're saying, a man saved you from a dog attack? Yes, and you just let him walk away. You don't even know his name. I shrugged. It all happened so fast. And then he was gone. Haley threw her hands up dramatically. Emily, this is straight out of a romantic movie. What now? Are you going to find him? How? I laughed. What do I do? Stand on a street corner and yell, "Hey, mysterious stranger who saved me?" She burst out laughing. Knowing Boston, he's probably at home right now telling his friends he was a hero tonight. Maybe he's thinking about you too. I doubt it, I said. But a small voice inside me whispered, maybe. Haley fell silent for a moment, then said softly, Emily, maybe this is a sign. A sign of what? That the moment you stopped guarding yourself, someone appeared to protect you. Maybe life's trying to tell you something. Her words hit me right in the chest. But then, as always, my mother's voice echoed in my head. Love doesn't feed you, Emily. Whatever life's trying to say, I replied. Mom keeps reminding me of one thing. Real life is built on security, not miracles. Haley smiled gently and touched my shoulder. Maybe this time, the miracle is the security. We both fell silent. Outside, the sun struggled to peek through the clouds. Inside, a quiet feeling began to take shape, not quite love, not quite hope, but something alive. That evening, the walls of my home felt too tight around me. After Haley left, silence wrapped itself around the house. I needed air movement. Something that wasn't my mother's voice or my own thoughts echoing back at me. So I stepped outside, letting the cool wind guide me through the dim streets of Boston. I didn't plan where to go. My feet decided for me. When I stopped, I found myself standing in front of a small old bookstore, Warren's Old Books. Through the dusty window, I saw shelves packed with forgotten titles, the golden light spilling from old lamps, and something inside me softened. It looked peaceful, the kind of peace I hadn't felt in years. I pushed open the door, and a small bell chimed above me as I walked between the aisles. The scent of paper and dust filled my lungs, grounding me. Then I heard a voice behind me. Be careful with that shelf, it's a bit loose. The moment I heard it, my heart clenched. I turned slowly, and there he was. The man from last night, the stranger in the rain. My mysterious savior now standing a few feet away, holding a cloth and a pile of old books. This time, he wasn't just a shadow. Under the bookstore's soft light, I could see him clearly. Tall, maybe 27 or 20-8. Dark chestnut hair, slightly tousled, a few days' worth of stubble on his jaw, wearing a simple gray t-shirt and faded jeans, sleeves rolled up, yet there was a quiet confidence in his posture. Even his movements had a kind of grace, like someone used to carrying the weight of silence. He noticed my shock and smiled slightly. "Guess we meet again," he said. "Yes," I breathed. My voice barely made it past my lips. "So you work here?" He shrugged lightly. "Yeah, it's a quiet job. Peaceful, good for thinking." I nodded, feeling my pulse race. "About last night," I said, my hands clasped together. "Thank you again." He smiled, meeting my eyes. "I'm just glad you're okay." That dog didn't seem friendly. Then he extended his hand, the faintest trace of humor in his eyes. "I'm Luke, by the way." "Emily," I said softly, shaking his hand. His hand was warm, grounding, steady, the kind of warmth that lingers after it's gone. We ended up talking longer than I expected, about books, about Boston, about how the city always smelled like rain and coffee. At some point, I told him where I worked. "I'm at Blue Harbor Cafe," I said. "It's a small place, but it has good people. The coffee smells a little like hope sometimes." Luke smiled, repeating the name slowly. "Blue Harbor. Sounds like the kind of place you go when you need to breathe." Something flickered in his eyes, a quiet promise I didn't recognize at first. He nodded thoughtfully, as if memorizing it. When I finally left the bookstore, the city was dipping into twilight. The lamps were glowing golden against the wet pavement, and Boston shimmered as if washed clean. I tucked my hands in my pockets and walked home, but my thoughts stayed behind, somewhere between the bookshelves and Luke's eyes. I tried to tell myself it was nothing, a coincidence, but no matter how many times I said it, my heart refused to believe me. Something about him lingered, the calm in his voice, the small smile, the way he listened, really listened. 4 days afterward, his image haunted me. Even at the cafe, while steaming milk or wiping counters, I'd catch myself staring at the door, half hoping, half fearing he'd walk in. And then he did. The bell above the cafe door rang, that familiar little chime, but this time, it felt different, as if it were ringing inside my chest. When I looked up, Luke was standing there. He held a worn paperback in one hand, wearing that same gray jacket, his hair slightly damp from the mist outside. He glanced around, then his eyes found me. He smiled. "I think I've found the perfect place for coffee," he said. My heart synced with the rhythm of the espresso machine. "Welcome," I managed. "First time at Blue Harbor." "Yeah, you mentioned it, and I thought books go well with coffee." He sat at the counter, laying the book in front of him. I read the title, The Old Man and the Sea. Somehow, it fit him perfectly, quiet strength beneath simplicity. "What would you like?" I asked. He looked at the menu, then at me. "What do you recommend?" "Latte with extra milk, soft but strong," I said, smiling. "Like you," he teased lightly. For a second, I froze, then smiled back. "Maybe," I said, "but I'm not that easy to figure out." He chuckled. "The easy ones never last long anyway." It was just a casual line, but it landed somewhere deep in me. His tone carried an honesty I wasn't used to hearing. I placed the coffee in front of him. "Here you go. Tell me if it's as poetic as your lines." He took a sip, closed his eyes briefly, and said, "This coffee tastes like a story." I raised an eyebrow. "A story, yes," he said. "The first sip is sweet, then a little bitter, but in the end, it leaves a quiet warmth that stays." I laughed. "You're the first customer to describe coffee like poetry." "Maybe your coffee inspires poetry," he replied. Something stirred inside me, light, unexpected, alive. Like someone had opened a window in a room I didn't realize had grown stuffy. For a while, neither of us spoke, just the soft hiss of the coffee machine, and the faint footsteps of people outside. Even the silence felt right, comfortable, natural. Then Luke reached into his pocket, pulling out a small notebook. "I like to write sometimes," he said, flipping through it. "Thoughts, lines, moments. It's easier than saying them out loud." I smiled faintly. "I'm the same. Except mine never make sense, they just spill out." "Maybe one day I'll read them," he said. My heart skipped. For a second, our eyes met, really met, and it felt like the world had faded away. Only the sound of our breathing remained. When he finished his coffee, a strange emptiness settled inside me, like someone had taken something warm from my hands. I wanted to ask if he'd come again, but the words stayed trapped behind my lips. At the door, he turned back and smiled. The coffee's great, he said, but the conversation's even better. I think I'll be back. And then he left, leaving behind the faint scent of rain and the sound of my heart beating too fast. As the cafe door closed, I just stood there, cup in hand, smiling to myself. And quietly, I whispered, I hope you always come back. That evening, the city lights shimmered across the wet streets as I locked up the cafe. I couldn't stop smiling. Something warm and restless was fluttering inside me, a feeling I hadn't known in years. When I got home, I couldn't keep it to myself any longer. I called Haley. Hey, what are you doing? Bored out of my mind, she said. But you sound suspiciously happy. What happened? Come over, I said, my voice bubbling with excitement. Something happened today, and it's not small. Her tone changed instantly. Give me 10 minutes. I'm bringing your favorite dessert. Half an hour later, the soft glow of my room mixed with the faint city lights outside. The wind moved the curtain gently while Haley sat cross-legged on my bed, opening the dessert box with a grin. Okay, she said. That look on your face means one of two things. Either you won the lottery, or you fell in love. I laughed nervously, then admitted, I think it's the second one. Haley dropped her spoon dramatically. What, the guy from last night, the dog hero? I nodded, my heart racing. He came to the cafe today, Luke. He actually showed up. Wait, what? How? Well, after you left yesterday, I went out for a walk. I ended up in a bookstore, and he was there. Turns out he works there. We talked, and I told him about Blue Harbor. Today he just came. Haley's face softened into a knowing smile. Emily, she whispered, your story has officially begun. I looked away, my chest tightening. I don't know, Haley, he's just a bookstore worker. My mother would lose her mind if she found out. She keeps saying, love doesn't pay the bills. Haley reached out and squeezed my hand. Maybe not, but love feeds something else, doesn't it? Maybe he's not as ordinary as you think. Before I could answer, a faint creak came from the door. Neither of us noticed it at first. Haley, when I think about him, I said softly, everything goes quiet. I feel safe, peaceful, but I'm scared too. What if my mom's right? What if I fall for the wrong man? Haley smiled gently. Sometimes, the person you think is wrong turns out to love you in all the right ways. The door creaked again, this time louder. When I turned, I saw my mother standing in the doorway. Her expression was cold, her eyes sharp. Who are you two talking about? She asked. Haley froze, instantly realizing the tension. I should go, she whispered. Setting her spoon down, she gave me a small, apologetic look and slipped past my mother out of the room. The door closed. Silence settled thick. Suffocating, my mother stood there for a long moment, just staring at me. Then she said quietly, Emily, you're standing on the edge of a disaster. Mom, don't interrupt me, she snapped. That boy, whoever he is, he's nobody. No family, no fortune, no future. You make one mistake like I did, and you'll spend your life paying for it. I did. You know I did. Her voice shook, part anger, part pain. Mom, just because you suffered doesn't mean I will, I said, my voice trembling but firm. Don't make the same mistake, she cried. You think love will save you? It won't, it never does. I'm trying to protect you, Emily. Tears burned behind my eyes. I'm not looking for someone to save me, I said quietly. I just felt peaceful with him, maybe for the first time in my life. She took a deep breath, shaking her head. Peace doesn't come with poverty. Love won't keep the lights on. Money protects people. Love passes, unpaid bills don't end with that. She turned and left the room. The door slammed behind her. Something broke inside me. A quiet, invisible snap, like a string that had been stretched too tight for too long. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at nothing. My hands trembled, my heart aching with something that felt like betrayal and grief at once. Then, silently, the tears came, at first just a few drops. Then everything poured out. Unstoppable. Outside, the city lights blurred through my tears, turning into golden smears against the window. Somewhere out there, I imagined Luke, maybe walking home, maybe thinking about me too, and through my sobs, a single thought cut through. Is falling in love really the disaster? Or is never feeling it at all the real tragedy? No answer came, only the quiet rhythm of rain, starting again outside, and the sound of my own heart choosing love over fear for the very first time. The next morning, pale light spilled through my window. My mother was in the kitchen making breakfast, the same as always, but something inside me had changed. Her words still echoed in my head. Yet my heart spoke louder, in a voice that sounded a lot like Luke's calm, steady tone. I got dressed, grabbed my coat, and left before she could stop me. I didn't even realize where I was heading until I saw it. The bookstore. Warren's old books. Through the glass, I saw him, standing between the shelves, pretending to look for something. When I stepped inside, he turned, surprise flickering across his face. Then he smiled, the same warm, gentle smile that had once cut through the rain. "Good morning," he said. "Welcome back, Emily." There was something in the way he said my name, a softness that made the air feel lighter. I smiled back, trying to sound casual. "Just looking for something to read, something to go with my coffee." "Excellent choice," he said. "Books and coffee are better therapy than any doctor." I laughed. "So, you don't believe in therapy?" "Oh, I do," he said, leaning slightly against the counter. "But books are cheaper." We both laughed. It was so easy, like we'd known each other for years. Still, I could see a quiet tension in his shoulders, like he didn't quite know what to do with his hands. I picked a random book and brought it to the counter as he bagged it. He asked carefully, "So, does your shift end early today?" "Maybe around 7, I said. He hesitated for a second. Then, maybe I could buy you a coffee this time." I froze for half a second, but my heart had already answered. "Sure," I said, pretending to be calm. "That sounds nice." The sky was turning gold by the time I left work. Luke was waiting in front of the bookstore, hands in his pockets, the wind playing with his hair, under the setting sun. His face looked softer, almost peaceful. "I kept my promise," he said. "Coffee's on me tonight." We walked to a small cafe near the river. The air was crisp, and though the evening carried a chill, I didn't feel cold. Luke's voice, his quiet laugh, they filled the spaces around us with warmth. "You know what I realized?" he said suddenly. "When you smile, the city gets quieter." I raised an eyebrow. "Oh really?" "My smile silences traffic." He nodded seriously. "Yes. And maybe even a few streetlights turn on just to see you better." I burst out laughing. "Do you always talk like this? Or are you just particularly inspired tonight?" He looked at me with a small grin. Maybe inspiration found its source. The words hung between us, delicate and warm. For a moment, we walked in silence, the sound of our footsteps blending with the hum of the city. We ended up at a small park near the bridge. The first star had appeared, faint against the darkening sky. Luke sat on a bench and pulled a small notebook from his coat pocket. "Sometimes I come here to write," he said. "I watch people, imagine their stories. But tonight, I'd rather know what you're thinking." I blushed, laughing nervously. "What I'm thinking?" He nodded. "Yes, because you're the first person I've ever wanted to understand before writing about." The sincerity in his voice made my heart tighten. I didn't know what to say, so I just smiled. After a long pause, he said quietly, "Emily, the day I met you, I thought life was giving me a second chance." "A second chance?" I echoed. "Yes," he said softly, "because I lost the first one chasing money." There was something heavy behind his words, something he didn't say. I didn't press him, I just listened, and for the first time in years, I felt that listening could be love to dates past. Our walks, our coffees, our quiet laughter became a rhythm. Luke had gently woven himself into the spaces between my days. And for once, everything felt right, but home. Home was another world. Every time I walked in, my mother's disapproval was waiting for me. One night, as we were eating dinner, she asked out of nowhere, "So, is that boy still around?" "Yes, Mom," I said softly, "and I'm happy." "Emily," she said flatly, "happiness disappears the moment reality walks in. The romance of poverty only works in novels." Her words hit like stones, but I said nothing. Later, in my room, I repeated her sentence again and again, until it lost its meaning. And when Luke's laughter echoed in my memory, her voice finally went quiet. Because his love didn't sound like fantasy, it sounded like home. That evening, the rain had just stopped when I saw him waiting outside the bookstore. The pavement glistened under the lights, and Luke stood there holding a small box. "Hey," he said softly, that same tender smile tugging at his lips. "Come with me." We walked by the water. The sea shimmered silver beneath the streetlights. Luke stopped, turned to me, and took a deep breath. "Emily," he said, his eyes searching mine, "sometimes someone enters your life, and suddenly everything makes sense." My heart was pounding. "Luke, since you came into mine, I haven't been the same. Maybe it's too soon. Maybe it's crazy," but he opened the small box, revealing a simple, elegant ring. I don't want to lose you. Will you marry me? The world fell silent. The wind, the sea, even my heartbeat seemed to pause. Tears blurred my vision. Luke, I love you, I whispered, but I'm scared. My parents, they'll never accept you. My mother wants me to marry rich, but I don't care. I love you, and that's enough. Yes, I'll marry you. Luke smiled, but something flickered in his eyes, hesitation. Emily, he said gently, there's something you should know. My stomach tightened. What is it? He took a deep breath. I'm not poor. I froze. What? I don't work at the bookstore. I own it. I own several, actually, and a few other businesses too. His voice was calm but careful. I didn't want you to see me through that lens. I wanted you to know me, not my money. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. The ground seemed to tilt beneath me. Why? Why would you lie to me? I whispered, because everyone who ever got close to me wanted my wealth, not my heart. But you saw me before you knew any of that. I didn't want to lose that purity. Tears spilled down my cheeks. So you tested me. You lied to me to see if I was worthy of you. No, he said quickly, stepping closer. I was protecting something real. I didn't want to ruin it. My voice broke. You don't protect love with lies, Luke. You protect it with truth. Rain began to fall again, soft at first, then harder. We stood in it, drenched, hearts laid bare. He looked at me, pain in his eyes. You're right, I should have told you, but I was terrified because for the first time, someone loved me for who I am. I stared at him, tears mixing with rain. Then prove it. Don't hide anymore. Come meet my family. Show them who you really are, not for them, but for me. He hesitated only a second, then nodded. Double quotes. Tomorrow night, he said. I'll come. The next evening, we stood side by side at my parents' door. My heart was pounding so loudly I could barely hear anything else. When the door opened, my mother's eyes widened. My father looked at Luke with the cold appraisal of a man measuring worth. Mr. and Mrs. Carter. Luke said politely, extending his hand. It's an honor to meet you. My mother didn't take it. Honor, she said sharply. For whom? For you, or for my daughter's naive heart? My father crossed his arms, silent but stern. I stepped forward. Mom, please, what? Emily, she cut me off. We don't even know who this boy is. No family, no future, no security. Is this really the kind of man you plan to marry? Luke straightened, a quiet determination in his eyes. Then I think it's time to be honest, he said. I recognized that tone, calm, steady, the same voice that once told me, don't move. But this time, it carried strength. I don't just work at the bookstore, he said clearly. I own it. I also own several others and a few small companies. I've built my life from scratch. I understand responsibility. I wanted your daughter to see me without the shadow of my wealth. My mother's expression shifted instantly, her voice softening, almost sweet. Well, I must have misunderstood, she said, forcing a smile. How wonderful. A successful young businessman. My father's tone changed to, impressive, son. Starting a business at your age isn't easy. Good for you. Son? The word hit me like a slap. Moments ago, they had been ready to throw him out. Now they were practically welcoming him into the family, not because of who he was, but because of what he had. Something shattered inside me. I looked at Luke, and he looked back at me. We both understood without a word. My parents didn't love happiness, they loved comfort. They didn't value character, they valued money. And in that moment, I saw it clearly. They weren't trying to protect me. They were trying to own me. I took a deep breath, tears threatening to rise again. Mom, Dad, I said quietly but firmly, I can't live by your rules anymore. My mother's fake smile faded. What are you saying? I reached for Luke's hand. I'm saying that I love this man for who he is, not for what he owns. And the moment you started caring about his money, I stopped caring about your approval. Luke squeezed my hand gently. Emily, he whispered, are you sure? I nodded. More sure than I've ever been. Let's go. We turned toward the door. Emily, my mother shouted, if you leave this house, don't come back. I stopped, looked over my shoulder, tears shining in my eyes. I won't, I said, because for once, I know where I'm going. We stepped out into the night. Behind us, the door closed on years of fear and control. Ahead of us, the world opened wide and real. The wind blew softly as Luke looked at me, smiling through the rain. What happens now? He asked. I rested my head on his shoulder. Now, it's just us, I whispered. No fear, no money, just heart. And for the first time, I wasn't afraid, because I was finally writing my own ending. The wedding day was like something out of a dream. The ocean glittered beneath the morning sun, tables lined with white orchids and crystal lights. Everything looked perfect, but none of it compared to the way Luke looked at me. In his eyes, I saw a home I'd never known. His mother, Sarah, hugged me tightly. "Welcome to our family, Emily," she whispered, her voice trembling with warmth. For the first time, I felt a mother's love, not born of fear, but of joy. When the priest spoke, his words blended with the sound of the waves. "Emily Carter, do you take this man to be your husband?" I looked at Luke, truly looked at his honesty, his past mistakes, his courage, and with every part of me, I said, "Yes." The crowd clapped, but all I heard was his voice, soft against the sea breeze. "I told you everything, and you still chose me. That makes me the luckiest man alive." Tears filled my eyes as he slid the ring onto my finger. And in that moment, my heart whispered one truth: nothing is missing anymore. As we danced under the golden lights, he leaned in and murmured, "You're not alone anymore, Emily. My home is yours. My family is yours." And just like that, all the fears, all the noise of the past dissolved into something small, like a distant echo, because I had finally stepped into a life built not on fear or wealth, but on love. That night, beneath a sky full of stars, I held his hand and whispered, "Just you, just this heart." And I finally understood. Sometimes, fate doesn't rescue you from poverty, but from fear, and when the right person comes along, no past, no pain can hold you back. The sea shimmered like glass, and the stars burned quietly above. For the first time in my life, I was home.